What if everything you know is wrong?
When you think about a modern university, all the research labs, PhD programs, the whole shebang, what if I told you that entire system, the one that basically runs the world, was all born from a single, kind of audacious experiment?
So the big question is, where did this revolutionary idea even come from? I'm willing to bet the answer is going to surprise you.
Your first guess might be, one of those ancient, hallowed halls in Europe. Maybe Oxford? Nope. Good guess, but that's not it.
Okay. What about here in the States? America's oldest and most prestigious? Harvard, right? Wrong again. The real answer, well, it comes from a much more unexpected place.
Believe it or not, the entire system was kicked off by a quiet little experiment in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins University. And the thing that made it change everything, it was all based on a single, and what some considered a really dangerous idea.
Now, to really get why that idea was so dangerous and revolutionary, we have to rewind a bit. We need to take a look at what American colleges were actually like before Johns Hopkins came along. And trust me, it was a completely different universe. So back in the 1800s, American colleges, they weren't about discovery at all. They were more like sanctuaries for the past. You had professors lecturing on theology, Latin, and Greek, the classic established knowledge. And the students, their job was pretty simple. Listen, memorize, and just soak it all in. The entire point was to preserve knowledge, to keep it safe, not to question it or add anything new.
And right there, you see this massive conflict brewing. On one hand, you have the old college model, which is all about preservation. You just memorize stuff. It's stable, it's predictable, it's safe. But then, on the other hand, you have this new idea of a research university. Its whole purpose is the creation of new knowledge through investigation. I mean, that's a total 180. It brings in chaos, unpredictability, and even a little bit of danger.
So what was the big deal? Well, this created a huge problem for a country that was trying to grow. If America wanted to be a real scientific and industrial power, it was missing a key ingredient. There was literally no place designed to discover new things. The country was basically importing all of its innovation instead of creating it at home.
And that's where our story takes a turn. It all changed because of one man, his massive fortune, and a vision that completely shattered the traditions of his time.
So, when a merchant named Johns Hopkins passed away in 1873, he left behind a staggering $7 million to start a university and a hospital. Now, you have to understand, back then, that was an absolutely insane amount of money. It was one of the biggest private fortunes in American history. It was the kind of cash that let you do something totally, radically different.
And here's the key part. Hopkins had zero interest in just creating another Harvard or Yale clone and slapping his name on it. No, his big idea, the entire reason for leaving that fortune, was to build something brand new, an institution that would do something nobody else in America was even trying to do.
So, with all this money and this brand new mission, where did the people in charge look for inspiration? Well, they didn't look at other American colleges. They looked across the Atlantic to a revolutionary new model that was taking off in Germany. This German blueprint, which they'd really perfected at places like the University of Berlin, was built on some pretty electrifying ideas. First, education wasn't about passively listening anymore, it was about active investigation. Second, professors couldn't just teach, they had to be active researchers, always pushing the boundaries. And the labs? Oh, they weren't just for show and tell, they were the main event, the central workshop. And get this, PhD students weren't just students, they were treated like apprentices, learning the craft of discovery.
So Johns Hopkins basically imported this entire model, and it was a massive shock to the American system. All of a sudden, the PhD, the degree you get for doing original research, was the main prize, even more important than a bachelor's degree. Laboratories went from being side rooms to being these sacred spaces, the absolute heart of the university. And professors? They started getting hired based on a totally new and, kind of dangerous question. Not just what do you know, but what can you discover?
And if you want to see where this new model really flexed its muscles, where it proved its power almost immediately, you have to look at medicine.
When the Johns Hopkins Hospital and Medical School opened their doors, they didn't just, tweak the old system. They blew it up entirely. For starters, they required a college degree just to get in, which was a huge deal back then. They dragged students out of the boring lecture halls and threw them into the labs. And, maybe most importantly, they combined cutting-edge research with actual patient care, right there at the bedside. It was the first time, really, that medicine in America was treated like a serious investigative science.
And you know what? It worked. The success was so obvious, so undeniable, that it started a chain reaction. Pretty soon, all the other big players, I'm talking Harvard, Stanford, the University of Chicago, they all saw the prestige and the incredible results, and they started copying the Hopkins blueprint. The revolution spreading like wildfire.
But this wasn't just about changing universities. The impact was way, way bigger. This blueprint actually built a whole new infrastructure for how we, as a society, discover things.
I mean, just think about how modern science works today. You've got peer-reviewed journals, right? Competitive research grants from places like the NIH or the NSF. The idea of having graduate students as research assistants. Every single one of those things can be traced directly back to the structure that was pioneered at Johns Hopkins. It literally built the machine.
And that was the ultimate shift. The university was no longer just a finishing school for rich kids to go and brush up on the classics. It became a knowledge factory, a powerful engine built for one purpose: to churn out new ideas, new tech, and new innovations that could change society.
And this single institutional change, this is what set the stage for America to become the world's scientific superpower in the 20th century. And what's really wild is that this entire ecosystem was already in place before the huge wave of government funding came in after the wars. The machine was already built, it was already running.
Which brings us to this really powerful final thought. The modern world pretty much runs on one core belief, that harnessing human curiosity, giving it a structure, and funding it, that's not a luxury. It's not just a nice thing to do. It is essential infrastructure, every bit as important as our roads and bridges. And that's the real lasting legacy of that quiet little experiment that started in Baltimore.
Understanding begins with why.